All right, River Valley family, we are back for another edition of the River Valley Podcast Stories Edition. I hope that by the time we are done recording this podcast, there is some wonderful snow happening outside. It's getting there. Actually, let's wait long enough for you to get home, right? Well, you may not recognize the person to my left, but this is the Sunny Valley edition of the podcast. I have my man, Bradley Bass, all the way out from Sunny Valley on with us today. Bradley, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Good. So it's fun. We've been doing the podcast since 2020, and I knew Bradley before I knew Bradley, right? So he would listen to the podcast when we would listen to Digging Deeper, and I would get emails from him. He'd actually, be sending in questions, and I still remember you were like, "We need some Digging Deeper merchandise. We need some merch." And I was like, "I wonder what this guy is like." And then I go out to Sunny Valley, and I see that Bradley Bass is on the launch team. And I was like, I finally get to meet him. And here we are. So,
Where's those bumper stickers?
yeah, we don't have the bumper stickers yet. It's, I don't know, maybe one of these days. But, Bradley, I'm excited because I have just heard bits and pieces of your story. And I want our River Valley family, I personally want to hear more. So, a pretty simple layout today, listeners. I'm going to ask Bradley where he was before he met Jesus, how Jesus found him, and what he is doing now, because there's a lot of cool stuff. So, Brad, I'm going to let you take it away. Where were you before you met Jesus?
So I was like 56 years into just living kind of an angry, resentful, narcissistic, self-centered life. Didn't really care about anybody else's feelings but mine. So I kind of was a bully. I was a pot grower for a lot of years. Not that in itself is a bad thing, but some of the things I did along the way, just not good. A lot of bullying, a lot of holding grudges, and I took a lot of that out on my family over the years, and I just kind of went through life very unhappy, not really even realizing that I was unhappy, but kind of just stuck in this meanness. And I tried to fix me a few times, and
What did those look like? What did those attempted fixes look like?
I'd get in a blowout with somebody in the family, and then I'd try to get my anger under control and my resentment, and try not to be controlling, and just before I knew it, I couldn't do it. I never could do it on my own. I always tried to get better, be better, and be more, just a kinder person, and I just never could do it.
So what would you say were the kind of the sins that had a grip on your life the most back when you were growing up? Anger, it sounds like, was one of them.
Oh, for sure. Control, just the whole bullying thing, because I was a very insecure person. I didn't have a lot of friends, and then I would act out like that, and of course that would push everybody away from me at that point. So I just kind of went through life just taking care of myself. And
this is something from middle school all the way up until...
Pretty much, yeah. When I was in school, I took refuge in the drums, and just kind of did my own thing on the drums all the way through high school.
And you were in a band.
Yeah, I played music all the way up to the present. I was in a band for about 10 years. We did some amazing things in Trinity County, but still, I was this kind of unhappy person traveling through life until, it bottomed out for me. I was an atheist.
Okay, growing up your whole life?
No, I was baptized as a kid, but later on, when I got to this point of the person that I was just talking about, I know it all. I'm that person. There's no way there can be a God. The whole intellectual atheist thing all the way down the road.
Okay, so what age would you say was your prime atheism, so to speak? What age were you?
Probably 19 or 20.
Okay.
I idealistically, but just basically went through my 20s and 30s and 40s, just turned my back on the whole thing, didn't believe it, and I am God, basically. Walk through life, take what you can, and strong versus weak, and just the whole thing. It's just
Okay.
really bad. And
So it kind of sounds like, and it's funny to say this about you from what I know, but you were very arrogant.
yeah,
Don't need you. Don't need to help me,
yep.
and that was in your relationships too, not just with God, but with people around you.
Not as bad as quite as bad as that, but there was definitely all that in there.
Okay.
You know?
Now take us to rock bottom.
Yeah,
There's a rock bottom there. Take us there.
yeah. So like 5 years ago, I got in a domestic dispute with my oldest stepdaughter at my house at night. I've been drinking all day. My wife got in the middle of it to try to break it up. I ended up chasing them down the road with a gun. They got to the neighbor's house, and I went to jail. That's
Wow. Was real quick. Was drinking everyday part of your life?
not so much, no.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I spent most of my marriage, I never drank, but I was just in a lot of pain from broken back and neck, and that's not an excuse, but I was,
Oh, right, but that's a part of your
that's
story
where I
as
was
well.
at right
So,
there. And,
so you had
yeah.
a broken back, broken neck.
Yeah, so like 10 years ago, I did break my back and neck, and it made me very dependent on the people around me, my family, and it made me go to the poor pity me thing and more anger, leaning towards suicide, and just not good, the whole thing.
Wow.
And
Yeah, those chronic injuries, from my understanding, can do so much emotionally, especially if you don't have a solution, you don't have a healing plan, or a surgery or whatever. So
yeah, I was somebody that was, a rafter, a drummer, just an outdoors person, and all of a sudden I couldn't do any of it.
wow.
None of it. And the work I used to do, I was a timber faller before as a pot grower, and I couldn't do either one of them after that happened. So,
Wow. So then, as you'd said, you got in a domestic dispute, chased your wife and your stepdaughter with a
yeah,
gun,
yeah,
and they got to the neighbor's house,
yeah,
called the cops.
yeah,
You wound up in jail.
yeah.
All right.
That's it.
How long were you in jail?
So it kind of goes in periods, but I was in there for like 16 months. But so the first couple of days, I just kind of hit rock bottom. I didn't see a reason to live anymore. I felt like my whole life was just over, and everything had culminated. The whole back thing, the whole family thing that just crumbled, the whole farming thing, just everything in my life. I felt like I'd reached rock bottom, and I just decided, that's it. I'm in jail. I'm going to kill myself. So I tried to walk up to the second floor to jump over the thing, just jump off the tier.
In jail, in prison.
In jail, right here in town, right there at the Josephine County Jail.
Wow.
And I couldn't get up the stairs to jump over the thing. I was so crippled at that point. So anyway, I went to bed that night. I thought, well, I'll just hang myself in the middle of the night. So I did. I made a noose, made a plan. About 3 or 4 in the morning, I'd been awake all night. I decided, okay, this is it. Tied the noose up, got ready to do it. In walks the guard, wakes up a couple of inmates, and they're up for the rest of the night, so I couldn't do it. Next night, same thing. Nobody comes in this time, and I decide, well, I'm just going to do it. So I'm about 5 seconds from doing it. The noose is on my neck. I look up on the ledge, and there's a book up there, right on the ledge of the jail, and it's a Bible. So I pulled the Bible open, and I just thought to myself, please, Jesus, please help me. And I just started crying, and I opened it up to a verse, and I just started crying, and I took the noose down, and I just prayed for a little bit, and the next morning I started reading the Bible. I had never read the Bible all those years, I just made all
Really?
these judgments on it. And so here I had all this free time. So I read like 13 hours the first day. And I had all day long, and it brought me so much peace. And it just, right from the beginning, it did. I mean, right literally from the beginning I opened the book.
Do you remember that verse that you read?
No, I've tried to remember
man.
that so many times.
I'll say that
it
belongs.
was New Testament, but I don't remember what it was.
Say that belongs in a tattoo somewhere on your back. So, do you remember though what you read for where you started when you were really?
Yeah, I started at the New Testament. I didn't want to go to the doom and gloom part of it. That's what I thought of it at that time. And then,
so you started reading Matthew in the Gospel.
Yep. Went all the way through the New Testament. took me like 3 weeks to read the whole Bible. And
Wait, I'm sorry. Three
so that
weeks
was
to read the whole Bible.
yeah, but that was kind of like the speedy version. You know, I was just trying to get the gist of what the whole thing was about, and
That's Old and New Testament?
yeah. And then I just started reading like 4 or 5 hours a day, and just like one chapter a day, and just really kind of meditate on it and try to get more out of it. And so during that time, you know, that first 2 weeks, everything in me changed. My whole mental thinking changed. I went from being this angry, controlling, like resentful person to being this really peaceful, calm, just almost happy person.
And
You know, by the time I got out, I used to say this to people that like I was more happy at that day than the people that in my life outside that were free. I was actually happier. I'm not saying that I wanted to be there.
Join me in prison,
yeah,
guys.
No. I'm not saying that, but I had this peace, and I just was okay. You know, way more okay than I ever was in my life out here.
So do you? I mean, obviously Jesus is the deciding factor in
absolutely.
that, but I mean, your perspective changed. Did your perspective about you change? Because before you were all about me. I'm the boss. I'm
yeah,
God.
absolutely.
So what about that changed? In
Yeah,
you just were convinced you actually weren't God. Like,
oh no, I'm nobody. I'm just lucky to have grace, and I realize that, you know.
wow.
And then all of a sudden, all the things that I did on all over those years, which I had put in this box and just, you know, just put the lid on the box, and I never thought about all those years, you know, it just all kind of came out, and I kind of had to deal with all that, and I did deal with all that, you know, just made peace with it and some of the people and.
So before we get to the what you're doing now phase, I wouldn't mind if there's some specific examples what dealing with all of that look like, because I think it's a very strong reality that we could have any life before we meet Jesus. We meet Jesus, we're transformed, but we still have consequences from our actions. And you
Yeah.
found yourself having
Yeah.
to put some pieces together, relationships.
Absolutely, you know, I had to deal with every one of my stepkids. You know, each one of them, with different issues with each one of them. My wife, most patient Christian person that I know.
So that is the wife mentioned in the story before
Yeah,
prison.
yeah.
Is you are
20
currently
years, yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Wow, and I bet that was pretty tough, but also pretty powerful to see the reconciliation there.
We had 2 years to go through the whole thing, and mostly I had to go through my end of it, and just it's been since then that I've had to gain her trust and show her that I am this new person, and Jesus had everything to do with that too. So
Yeah.
he's opened her eyes and her heart.
Wow.
So.
Any more other kind of cool stories from that time in prison?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. So about the first 2 weeks I got in there, they locked it down because of COVID, and so I had just bought a guitar, acoustic guitar, and I was playing out on the yard, and all of a sudden there was no yard, and they wouldn't let you play in the buildings. So I have this acoustic guitar, and I can't play it. And we were locked up in the buildings where we could never even come out of them hardly. So one of the guards, this female guard, told me, "Come here, get your guitar." And she opened up this broom closet behind the guard's desk, and she put a chair in there, and she said, "An hour." So she locked me in the broom closet with a light on in there with my guitar, and I got to play for an hour in there.
What
And then,
motivated her to do that?
She just knew that I had been talking to her, and she had seen me play a couple times out there, and she knew I wasn't. I didn't hang around the cliques of inmates. I just hung to myself, and she also knew that I was going to church there, and I was doing other things there. I was trying to help with the worship team before they locked everything down, and they actually had a worship team at the chapel at prison there.
Wow.
A couple of guys. But yeah,
Wow.
and but anyway, so I got to play in that closet every night, play for God, because that's who I would play for. I'd just
Right.
go in there and pray and play for God for 9 months.
Was there a song that you found was in your queue more often than not?
Well, Amazing Love was the first song that I
Oh,
really learned to play in there, and then when we kind of came off a partial lockdown, I went over to the chapel and played it in the chapel there. Amazing
wow.
Love. But yeah, there was a handful of songs. I learned about 20 or 30 songs in that closet.
Wow.
So, but yeah,
All
that
right.
was one miracle. Because
Okay.
nobody else, there was not a single other person that got to do anything like that. Oh,
Right.
just why me? You
Yeah.
know? And then, and I know that that's why. It's because it was God. I know that's true. And then, so the transition house, I was set to get out early, like 4 months early, and COVID had locked everything down, including all these transition houses, so they weren't taking anybody. And they were making people stay in prison right up to the last day. And right out of the blue, 2 days before my transition date, boom, all of a sudden there's one opening in a transition house right here in Grants Pass, 2 blocks from the church. The Ferguson
Really?
house over there.
Which house?
Ferguson house.
Okay.
So that's how I got to River Valley's
Wow.
first week out in Ferguson house. I came over here and I've been here ever since.
Wow.
So
Yeah. And then we were just talking. So you get out, COVID still goes in lockdown. You stick with us online.
yeah,
And then you live out in Sunny Valley still. And then boom, there's going to be a church out in Sunny Valley.
yeah, that was great. It took a long time, but there's a lot of darkness out there. There needs to be some light, and that church is definitely a light.
Yeah. Been super, super
Yeah,
cool. Um, Now, you obviously have been a big part of this church. You serve on our worship team, on our media team, doing the slides. But I know, just in the grace that God's given you, there's a lot more happening in your life outside of what you're doing on Sundays with us. So, yeah, speak to that. I
yeah,
know the mission, rock. I don't want to take that from
yeah,
you.
yeah.
So you're doing
So,
some
so
cool stuff
that's
out
the
there.
one more little miracle in prison is about a month before I got out, I was thinking to myself, man, how am I going to feed myself
When you get out of
when I get
prison.
out of prison? Yeah, I even went to the point where I gained like 5 extra pounds just to pack out of there, and so I got out, and the very first day I got out, the transition house lady told me, go over to the Rock, start volunteering over there. So I did. I went over the next day, and I volunteered for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they gave me a salary over there. Easter seals kicked in, and I've been at the Rock ever since.
Wow. So
And
one of your final thoughts in prison is, I don't know how I'm gonna
feed
feed
myself.
myself,
And
and
now
God's like,
I was in a food warehouse the next day,
feeding
2 days later. Yeah,
feeding the hungry
yeah.
in
Every
Grants
week we
Pass.
did. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
Wow.
the Rock, the Rock is it's an awesome place. I'm just gonna plug it for a minute
Yeah.
because it doesn't take any government money. It's all donations. Last month, January, 39,000 meals, 2,900 adults, 1,500 kids.
Wow.
1 month grants pass. 280 home deliveries. These are people that can't get out to get food. You know, 280.
Wow. In one
And
month.
in 1 month, yeah, 457,000 meals last year. Over 1,000,000 pounds of food through the
Wow.
Rock.
All getting donated.
All volunteers, except
Wow.
for it's 2 staff, 1 executive director.
Okay.
That's it. So, and if anybody wants to volunteer, that would be awesome. We could use the help.
Yeah. Big
Yeah.
volunteer push at the Rock Pantry. Okay.
So that's the plug for the Rock. That's another thing. Is like I feel like I'm on the front row of God's work. I see His hand every day in the Rock.
Wow.
Every week you see kind of like a little mini miracle. So
Wow.
it's like, yeah, it's just amazing.
That's so cool. And then remind me, what was your involvement with the mission over there as well?
So I needed extra hours. I asked Brian if I could just start working at the mission, if they had anything extra over there. So he put me on the staff over there to do the outside maintenance. So I've been doing that ever since then. I think I'm gonna put in for maybe the coordinator job there. I haven't decided yet, but
That's exciting.
he'll watch this and then he'll know.
Yeah. We love Brian over there. He's been on here a time or two, so
Yeah,
big
I've
fan of
seen it.
Brian.
Yeah,
Well, cool. So, all right, you're out of prison. You immediately get pointed to the Rock,
Yeah.
and you're there. What
Yeah, I've been
else?
there ever since.
What else have you seen kind of the Lord doing in your life outside of the Rock and the church? Any other stuff? I mean, I know that's a big part of it, but
Yeah, that's probably 95% of it. I just always wanted to try to give back when I got out of prison, so I give a ride, this guy a ride to work 3 days a week from way out there, Glendale,
okay,
and then I just try to help people. My wife and I were always trying to give people gas. I don't know why they do it, but they run out of gas right in front of our house out there. So we're helping people with gas. We let people stay there. We give them showers. Just feel like the more you can give, the less you're thinking about yourself. I don't ever think about myself anymore.
wow,
I mean, compared to the person that I used to be,
wow.
don't. So,
So, what would somebody that knew you 25 years ago? What would they say when they came and talked to you right now?
well, there are people that knew me back then that are just mesmerized.
Really?
I mean,
What a talking
it's so
point, though,
obvious.
right?
Yeah, it's so obvious.
Wow.
Hey,
Well,
look, my kids are the biggest thing because they've seen me at my worst, and now they see me the person I am now.
wow.
So.
So, if you can narrow it down to just a few points, maybe you can't. What would you say were some of the biggest lessons you've learned, maybe over the last 10 years?
Yeah, just don't get stuck in this narcissism thing. Always lean to God. I mean,
Okay.
there's so many blessings that you'll get from it, and then you can be a blessing to other people. Uh, that's my biggest lesson.
I love what you said, and I think this was something that was shared in all of our generosity series about giving. Um, yeah, there's a lot of motivations for giving, but I think if you are giving, naturally, it's going to combat greed and selfishness in your life, and you think about yourself less if you're thinking about others more. So that's really powerful.
And that's exactly it. And then, and you could also have a human interaction.
Oh yeah,
At the Rock, I used to give Jim Savard's 30-second pitch every car that went through, and just try to get somebody to come to church.
right.
But you can have that interaction with people at the mission. We actually make a difference in people's lives there.
Yeah.
1/3 of the people that have come through the mission, they've actually succeeded in the program. They go out of there with a house, with a home, and with a job.
Yeah.
The Over the last 6 years, the mission has had over 600 people that have contributed $61 million to the economy around here. $61 million.
Wow.
6 years. They're not taking the services also that would cost to support these people because they're supporting themselves.
Wow.
Can you name another nonprofit in this county that does anything like that? So the mission, you have a one-on-one with these people, and you can literally, God can work through you to say one sentence to them that's life-changing,
Yeah.
and He'll put the words right in your mouth. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah. So I think given the history of your life, one thing I've noticed about you, and I'm curious if this is true or not, it seems that you're pretty fearless as far as your evangelism and your relationships, right? There's an area by the church. It's got a couple interesting houses up there, and you head up
Yeah,
there to invite them to church and come
I
back.
try.
Yeah, it seems like whether it's just you've seen the worst of the worst, you've been the worst of the worst, or you know that God has your back. It seems like you kind of have a fearless mentality when it comes to your relational evangelism. Is that true?
Hey, it says to go out there and tell Jesus' story and the Great Commission. I mean, that's just what I'm trying to do. The people I do go talk to, just trying to plant a seed. I don't actually expect any of them to ever come. I'll be amazed if they do. That'll be God's side of it, But,
Oh
but at
yeah.
least I can go up there and plant seeds, be a little shining light for them.
Wow.
So
Well, I think my last question for you, and then I want to open it up if you have anything else you want to say, is what would you say to the you 15 years ago if you could go back? Or what would you say to somebody that is in a similar situation, whether it's drugs or that narcissism, that all about me, that selfishness, that atheism? What would you say to a person in that position?
Look, you know you're broken. Whether you can admit it to yourself that you can't fix yourself, that's the whole thing. And really, the only person that can fix you is Jesus.
Wow.
That's, I mean, look at all the people that are stuck in that. Look at our whole culture, and I mean, Jesus is the only one that can fix any of this.
So back then, when you were in that lifestyle, do you think that deep down you knew that you were broken, but you just didn't want to fix
Absolutely, and I didn't care. That's the thing I mean, the only thing that matters was me, so I could justify my brokenness 100 different ways. Didn't matter.
it? Right, to the point where it's not even
Didn't
brokenness.
matter. Nope.
Wow.
Yep.
But then it was that night with the noose around your neck, with the
Yeah.
Bible in front of you, where it just hit.
Hey, look at the heroin addicts, or like the gambling addicts, or look at just all these broken people. Do they ever like admit that to themselves, or do they ever think that they can fix themselves, or you know?
A lot of justification, right, with
Yeah,
our
that's
sin.
what it is.
Yeah. And you just got to a point where you couldn't justify anymore.
Yeah, well, I just got to a point where Jesus, you know, I can kind of relate to Saul. He's walking down the road. He's been persecuting Christians forever, and he's the man. You know, he's the man. He's walking down the road, and boom, he got slammed. Jesus slammed him. You know, so I'm walking down my own life. I'm the man. You know, and I got slammed.
Yeah.
I didn't lose my my vocals or anything like that, but I got slammed, man, and it's real, the transformation, and that's the reality. That's the realization that this whole thing is real, man, and yeah, so I got real myself real quick, so.
Wow. Well, Bradley, yeah. No, I appreciate it. Is there any kind of final thoughts, maybe anything that we missed from those aspects of your life? I don't want to leave any stone unturned.
Well, there's a bunch that's not said, but that's the general gist of it. I guess the big take-home point is, you just need, once you turn to God, God will change you, take you down that road, and but for somebody like me, I just never even would have considered it. So I would just suggest to anybody out there, do it on your own if you can. Lean to God. Just ask God to come into your life and, ask for forgiveness. Don't wait to get slammed on the ground and then ask for forgiveness. But
yeah, if you can meet God in a church or a life group, otherwise He's going to meet you in prison, right?
Exactly.
So, well, I guess those aren't your only options, but
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Who would have thought 10 years ago somebody tells you you're going to be serving in a church, going to be part of the launch team,
No.
going to be serving at the Rock? That's.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of any of it, actually. It's just amazing.
Wow. Well, Bradley, I really appreciate your story. I hope it encourages any listeners out there. And I'm excited to continue to get to know you out at Sunny Valley.
Yeah.
Glad you're with us on that team. So, yeah, thank you, listeners. Thanks for tuning in. The story of Bradley Bass.
Amazing.
Amazing. All right, have a great day, guys.